The afternoon sun felt warm against her skin as she sat outside the small cafe on Riverside Avenue. It was one of those perfect spring days where everything seemed just right. The kind of day that made you want to sit outside with a good cup of coffee and forget about your worries for a while. 20-year-old Emily loved this spot. She'd been coming here every Tuesday afternoon for the past 3 months, ever since she started college. It was her little escape, her peaceful corner where she could work on her art without anyone bothering her. The cafe had these nice outdoor tables with big umbrellas, and the staff always remembered to bring extra napkins without her having to ask. Her wheelchair was positioned comfortably beside the table, and her golden retriever Max lay quietly at her feet. Max wasn't just a pet. He was her service dog, trained to help her with things that cerebral palsy made difficult. Right now, though, he was just being a good boy, enjoying the sunshine and occasionally looking up at her with those big, loyal eyes. Emily had her sketchbook open in front of her, working on a drawing of the old bridge visible from where she sat. Her hand moved slowly across the page, each line requiring more concentration than most people would need. But she didn't mind. Art was her passion, the one thing that made her feel truly free. When she was drawing, she wasn't the girl in the wheelchair. She was just an artist creating something beautiful. The cafe wasn't too busy today. A few other customers sat scattered around the outdoor area. An older couple at a corner table, a woman working on her laptop, and 2 college students studying together. Everyone seemed lost in their own little worlds, which was exactly how Emily liked it. She took a sip of her vanilla latte, careful not to spill any on her drawing. The coffee was perfect, just the right amount of sweetness. She'd just started shading the bridge's arch when she heard them. The sound of motorcycles, loud ones. 3 bikes roared into the parking lot, their engines rumbling so loudly that several people looked up from their tables. Emily glanced over briefly, then returned to her drawing. She'd seen plenty of bikers before. This was a popular route for motorcycle groups on weekends and weekday afternoons. The bikes parked right in front of the cafe, taking up several spots. 3 men climbed off, all wearing black leather jackets and heavy boots. The first one off was tall and broad-shouldered, with a thick beard and arms covered in tattoos. The other 2 were slightly smaller, but looked just as intimidating. They were laughing loudly about something, their voices carrying across the quiet outdoor seating area. Emily kept her eyes on her sketchbook, not wanting to make eye contact. Something about their energy made her uncomfortable. Maybe it was the way they were looking around, like they owned the place. Or maybe it was just her own anxiety acting up again. The bearded one, who seemed to be the leader of the group, spotted the empty large table near where Emily sat. It was the only table that could comfortably fit 3 people, and it happened to be right next to her smaller table. He started walking toward it, his boots heavy on the concrete patio. As he got closer, he stopped. His eyes fell on Emily's wheelchair, which was positioned in a way that made it slightly difficult to get to the larger table. There was still plenty of room to walk around it, but apparently that wasn't good enough. "Hey," he called out, his voice rough and demanding. "You gonna move that thing or what?" Emily's heart started beating faster. She looked up at him, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your wheelchair," he said, gesturing impatiently. "It's in the way. We need that table." Emily felt her cheeks flush. There's room to get past. I'm almost done with my coffee. I'll be leaving soon." The man scoffed and looked back at his friends who had now joined him. "You hear that? She'll be leaving soon." He said it in a mocking tone that made Emily's stomach turn. One of his friends, a shorter guy with a shaved head, smirked. "Maybe we should help her leave faster." Emily's hands started to shake. She tried to focus on gathering her things, hoping they'd just leave her alone if she hurried. But her cerebral palsy made quick movements difficult, and her trembling hands made it even worse. "What's wrong with you anyway?" the bearded one asked, leaning against a nearby chair. "You look all shaky." I have cerebral palsy," Emily managed to say, though her speech was more slurred than usual. Stress always made it worse. The third biker, a thin man with long hair, suddenly started mimicking her speech pattern. I have cerebral palsy," he repeated in an exaggerated, mocking voice that made his friends burst out laughing. Emily felt tears stinging her eyes. This couldn't be happening, not here, not at her safe place. "Dude, stop it," the bearded one said, but he was laughing too. "That's messed up." Even as he said it, though, he didn't sound like he really meant it. He sounded more amused than anything, Emily tried to stand up from her chair to leave, forgetting for a moment that she couldn't without help. Her legs wouldn't support her weight, and she fell back into her seat awkwardly. The movement made her knock her sketchbook off the table. "Whoa, did you see that?" The shaved-head one called out, pointing at her. "She tried to get up." Emily reached down for her sketchbook, but before she could grab it, the bearded biker kicked it with his boot. It slid across the patio, pages fluttering, and stopped near a planter about 10 feet away. "Oops," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "Butterfingers." Max, who had been quiet until now, stood up and started barking. He positioned himself between Emily and the bikers, his hackles raised. Emily grabbed his vest, trying to calm him down. The last thing she needed was for them to complain about her dog being aggressive. "It's okay, Max," she whispered, though her voice was shaking. "It's okay, boy. Even her dog's messed up," the thin one commented, making another joke that sent his friends into more laughter. Emily looked around desperately, hoping someone would help her. The older couple at the corner table was watching, their faces concerned, but they didn't move. The woman with the laptop had her phone out, but Emily couldn't tell if she was recording or just pretending to be busy. The college students had their heads down, clearly not wanting to get involved. Through the window, Emily could see the cafe manager, a young guy probably in his mid-20s. He was looking out at the scene, but when Emily made eye contact with him, he quickly looked away and went back to wiping down the counter. No one was going to help her. She was alone. The bearded biker walked over to her wheelchair and grabbed the handles from behind. "You want to move? Let me help you move." "Please don't," Emily begged, her voice breaking. "Please just leave me alone." But he didn't listen. He started pushing her wheelchair in circles, slowly at first, then faster. "There we go. Now you're moving. How's that? Want to go faster?" Emily gripped the armrests, terrified. The world was spinning around her, and she couldn't control anything. She heard the other bikers laughing, heard one of them say something about making a video. "This is hilarious, man," the shaved-head one shouted. "Keep going." Emily's coffee cup, which had been sitting in the holder on her wheelchair, tipped over. Hot coffee spilled onto her lap, soaking through her jeans. She cried out, not from pain because the coffee had already cooled down, but from the humiliation of it all. "Oh man, she spilled her drink," the thin one said, and they all laughed harder. Finally, the bearded biker stopped spinning her wheelchair. Emily's head was still spinning, and tears were streaming down her face. She couldn't control the crying, couldn't control the way her body was shaking, couldn't control anything. "Aw, don't cry," the bearded one said, but his tone was still mocking. "We're just having some fun. Can't you take a joke?" The older man from the corner table finally stood up. "Hey, leave her alone," he called out, his voice shaky but brave. The three bikers turned to look at him. The bearded one took a step toward the elderly couple. "You got something to say, old man?" The man's wife grabbed his arm, pulling him back down into his seat. "Please, honey," she whispered. "Don't." The old man sat back down, and Emily felt even more alone than before. Even when someone tried to help, these guys were too intimidating. The bearded biker turned back to Emily with a smug grin. "That's what I thought." He looked at his friends. "Come on, let's go get some food." "I'm starving." The three of them walked toward the cafe entrance, still laughing and joking about what had just happened. One of them was still looking at his phone, probably at the video they'd recorded. Emily sat there in her wheelchair, coffee staining her jeans, her sketchbook still lying across the patio, her whole body shaking from crying. Max whined and put his head on her lap, trying to comfort her. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers. She should call someone. Her mom, maybe, or her roommate. But what would she even say? That she'd been humiliated by some random bikers at her favorite cafe? That no one had really helped her? That she felt helpless and humiliated and wanted to disappear? She looked at her phone screen through blurry tears, her finger hovering over her mom's contact. But she couldn't do it. She couldn't tell her mom what happened. Her mom already worried about her so much, always asking if people treated her okay at school, if she felt safe going places alone. Emily put her phone back down and just sat there crying quietly, with coffee on her jeans and her art scattered across the patio. The other customers had gone back to their own business like nothing had happened. Like she wasn't sitting there completely broken. Inside the cafe, through the window, she could see the three bikers ordering food at the counter, still laughing about something. Probably about her. She'd never felt more alone in her entire life. Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to pull herself together. The coffee stain on her jeans was spreading, making a dark wet patch that she knew everyone could see. She wanted to leave so badly, wanted to just disappear and never come back to this place. But her sketchbook was still lying by the planter and she couldn't just leave it there. That sketchbook had months of work in it. She looked over at where it lay about 10 feet away. 10 feet might as well have been a mile for her. Without her wheelchair, she couldn't walk that distance. And even with her wheelchair, bending down to pick something up off the ground was difficult and took time. Max nudged her hand with his nose, sensing her distress. She ran her fingers through his fur, trying to calm down. "It's okay, boy," she whispered, though nothing felt okay. The older couple was still sitting at their corner table, but they kept looking away whenever Emily glanced in their direction. She could tell they felt bad about not helping more, but she also understood. Those bikers were intimidating, and the elderly man probably couldn't have done much even if he'd tried. Emily took a deep breath and started to wheel herself toward her sketchbook. Each push of her wheels felt heavy, like she was moving through mud. Her arms were shaking, partly from the cerebral palsy and partly from the emotional stress of what had just happened. She was halfway to the planter when the cafe door swung open. The 3 bikers came back out, carrying drinks and bags of food. Her heart sank. She'd hoped they would sit inside, but of course they were coming back to the outdoor seating. "Oh, look, she's moving," the one with the shaved head called out. "Good girl. See, you can do it when you try." They all laughed as they walked past her toward the large table. Emily stopped moving, frozen in place, praying they would just leave her alone now. She was almost to her sketchbook. Just a few more feet, but the bearded one wasn't done. He set his food down on the table and walked over to where Emily had stopped. "What are you doing? Going somewhere?" "I'm just getting my sketchbook," Emily said quietly, not looking at him. "Your what?" He bent down like he was talking to a child. "Your sketchbook? Is that what you said? I can't understand you very well." The thin one with long hair joined him. "Yeah, she's got that thing with her mouth. Makes it hard to talk, right?" Emily felt her face burning with embarrassment. She'd worked with speech therapists for years to improve her speech, and most of the time people could understand her just fine. But when she was stressed or upset, it got worse. And right now, with these men standing over her, mocking her, her words were coming out more slurred than usual. "I just want my sketchbook," she tried again, speaking as clearly as she could. "Oh, that thing," the bearded one said, walking over to where it lay. He picked it up and started flipping through the pages. "Is this yours? Wow, you actually drew all this stuff?" Emily's stomach dropped. Those were her private drawings, her personal work. Him touching it felt like a violation. "Please give it back." "These are actually pretty good," he said, showing a page to his friends. "Look at this one. It's that bridge over there." The shaved head guy grabbed the sketchbook from him and started looking through it too. "Yeah, not bad. Didn't think someone like you could draw. Someone like me?" Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "You know what I mean," he said with a shrug. "With your condition or whatever." The thin one grabbed the sketchbook next, and they passed it between them like it was a toy. Emily watched helplessly, tears starting to flow again. That sketchbook was everything to her. It had drawings she'd spent hours on, ideas for her college art projects, personal sketches that meant something. "Please," she begged. "Please just give it back." "What's the magic word?" the bearded one teased, dangling the sketchbook just out of her reach. Emily hated herself for it, but she said it anyway. "Please, I don't know. What do you guys think? Should we give it back?" He was enjoying this, enjoying having power over her. "Make her do a trick first," the thin one suggested. "Like her dog. Dogs do tricks, right?" They all thought this was hilarious. Emily couldn't believe this was happening. Were they really going to make her beg? Were they really treating her like this? "Come on, man," the shaved head guy said. "This is getting old. Just give her the book." For a second, Emily felt a flicker of hope. Maybe one of them had a conscience. But the bearded one wasn't ready to stop. "Fine, fine." He held out the sketchbook toward Emily, but when she reached for it, he pulled it back. "Psyche." His friends cracked up and Emily felt something break inside her. She couldn't do this anymore. She couldn't keep trying to reason with people who saw her as entertainment, as something to mock and laugh at. The bearded one finally tossed the sketchbook toward her, but not gently. It flew through the air and landed on the ground near her wheelchair, some of the pages bending. Max immediately went over and picked it up carefully in his mouth, bringing it to Emily. "At least the dog's useful," one of them muttered. Emily took the sketchbook from Max, her hand shaking so badly she almost dropped it. She held it against her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. Some of the pages were crumpled, and there was a small tear in one corner, but it was mostly okay. The three bikers finally went back to their table and started eating. Emily thought maybe it was over, that they'd had their fun and would leave her alone now. She started to turn her wheelchair around, ready to get out of there as fast as she could. "Hey, where are you going?" the bearded one called out. "Don't leave on our account. We're not that scary, are we?" Emily didn't answer. She just wanted to go home. "I'm talking to you," he said, his voice getting harder. "It's rude not to answer when someone's talking to you." She stopped, unsure what to do. If she left, would they follow her? Would they do something worse? But if she stayed, what then? "You know what your problem is?" the bearded one continued, standing up from his table. "You got no sense of humor. We're just joking around having a good time, and you're over there crying like we did something terrible." "You did," Emily said quietly, surprising herself with her own boldness. "What was that?" He walked closer. "I didn't hear you." "You did do something terrible," Emily repeated louder this time. Her voice was shaking, but she said it anyway. "You hurt me," the shaved head guy laughed. "We didn't touch you." "You don't have to touch someone to hurt them," Emily said, tears streaming down her face. "You made fun of the way I talk. You made fun of my disability. You took my things. You humiliated me in front of everyone." The bearded one stared at her for a moment, and for a second, Emily thought maybe she'd gotten through to him. Maybe he'd realize what he'd done and apologize. But then he smiled. "You're right. We did all that. And you know what? It was pretty funny." His friends laughed, and Emily felt whatever small hope she'd had die completely. The thin one pulled out his phone. "Hey, I got most of it on video. Want to see?" He held up his phone, showing them the footage of Emily being spun around in her wheelchair, her crying everything. "That's gold," the bearded one said. "You should post that." "No," Emily shouted. "Please don't, please." The idea of that video being online, of people all over seeing her at her most vulnerable and humiliated, was too much to bear. She'd rather they kept mocking her here than have the whole internet see it. "Why not?" the thin one asked. "It's a free country. I can post what I want." "It's not right," Emily pleaded. "Would you want someone to do that to you? Would you want someone to film you at your worst moment and put it online?" "Yeah, but we're not disabled," the shaved head guy said, like that explained everything. Emily looked around again, desperately hoping someone would step in. The woman with the laptop was definitely filming now, her phone pointed at the scene. The college students were whispering to each other, looking uncomfortable but still not moving. The older couple looked distressed but stayed in their seats. And then something unexpected happened. A middle-aged woman who'd been sitting inside came out to the patio. She was dressed in business clothes, carrying a briefcase, and she walked right up to the three bikers. "Excuse me," she said firmly. "I think you need to leave this young woman alone." The bearded one turned to her with an annoyed expression. "And who are you? Her mother?" "I'm someone who's had enough of watching you bully a disabled person," the woman said. "It's disgusting." Emily felt a surge of gratitude. Finally, someone was standing up for her. But the bearded one just laughed. "Mind your own business, lady." "This is my business," the woman said. "I'm a paying customer here, and I shouldn't have to watch you harass people while I'm trying to enjoy my coffee." "Then don't watch," the thin one suggested. The woman pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police. For what?" the bearded one challenged. "We didn't do anything illegal. We're just talking. Last time I checked, that wasn't a crime." "Harassment is a crime," the woman countered. "And so is discrimination based on disability." The three bikers exchanged looks. For the first time, they seemed slightly uncertain. The bearded one's smug expression faltered just a little. "Whatever," he finally said. "We were just about to leave anyway. This place is boring," but he didn't move. He just stood there staring the woman down like he was trying to make her back off first. It was some kind of power play, and Emily held her breath, wondering what would happen next. The woman didn't back down. She stood her ground, phone in hand, finger hovering over the emergency call button. The tension was thick enough to cut. Other customers were watching now, not even pretending to mind their own business anymore. The cafe manager had come to the door finally. though he still looked too nervous to actually do anything. "You really want to call the cops over nothing?" the bearded one asked the woman. "That's a waste of their time." "Then leave," the woman said simply. "Just leave her alone and go." The shaved head guy grabbed his friend's arm. "Come on, man. She's not worth it. Let's just go to that other place down the street." The bearded one pulled his arm away but seemed to consider it. He looked at Emily one more time, then at the woman with her phone, then at all the other customers who were now watching and probably recording. "Fine," he said, "but not because of you. Because this place sucks anyway." He and his friends gathered their food and drinks, taking their time to show they weren't being forced out. They walked past Emily's wheelchair, and the bearded one accidentally bumped into it as he went by, making her jolt forward. "Oops," he said without looking back. They got on their motorcycles, revving the engines loudly, probably trying to make some kind of statement. Then they roared out of the parking lot, leaving a cloud of exhaust behind them. The moment they were gone, Emily started sobbing. All the fear and stress and humiliation came pouring out. She couldn't hold it in anymore. Max pressed against her leg, whining, trying to comfort her. The businesswoman came over and knelt beside Emily's wheelchair. "Are you okay, honey?" Emily shook her head. She wasn't okay. She might never be okay again. The businesswoman stayed with Emily for a few minutes, offering kind words and tissues from her purse. She asked if Emily wanted her to call someone, maybe her parents or a friend. But Emily just shook her head. She felt too embarrassed, too broken to explain what happened to anyone else. The woman eventually had to leave for a meeting, but before she went, she squeezed Emily's hand and told her she was brave. Emily didn't feel brave. She felt small and helpless and utterly defeated. She sat there for a while longer, not quite ready to leave but not sure what to do next. Her coffee-stained jeans were uncomfortable, her sketchbook was damaged, and her whole body ached from the stress. Max kept his head on her lap, his warm presence the only thing keeping her from completely falling apart. The other customers had mostly gone back to their own business. The older couple left, giving Emily sympathetic looks as they passed. The college students packed up their stuff and hurried away, probably uncomfortable with the whole situation. Even the woman who'd been filming on her laptop eventually closed her computer and went inside. Emily felt invisible again, but this time it was different. Before, being invisible had been a relief. Now it just felt lonely. She was trying to decide whether she had enough energy to wheel herself to her car when she heard another vehicle pull into the parking lot. This one was quieter than the motorcycles had been. Emily didn't look up at first. She didn't have the energy to care who else was coming to the cafe. But then she heard a car door close, and something made her glance over. A black SUV had parked a few spaces away from where the motorcycles had been. And stepping out of it was a woman who immediately commanded attention. Even though she wasn't trying to, she was a black woman, probably in her early 40s, and she was wearing a military dress uniform, not the casual fatigues you sometimes see people wear, but the formal kind with the jacket and medals and everything. The uniform was perfectly pressed, every detail sharp and precise. On her chest were several ribbons and medals that caught the afternoon sunlight. The woman closed her car door and started walking toward the cafe entrance, but then she paused. Her eyes landed on Emily, still sitting at her table with tear-stained cheeks and coffee on her jeans, looking like she'd been through something terrible. The woman changed direction and walked straight toward Emily instead. Emily tried to wipe her face quickly, not wanting another stranger to see her crying. But it was too late. The woman had already seen everything. "Excuse me," the woman said, and her voice was gentle but strong at the same time. "Are you all right?" It was such a simple question, but it broke something open in Emily. Fresh tears started flowing before she could stop them. She shook her head. "No," she whispered. "I'm not all right." The woman looked around at the scene. The empty tables, the way other customers were avoiding looking at Emily, the coffee stain, the crumpled sketchbook. Her jaw tightened like she was putting pieces together in her mind. Then she did something unexpected. She knelt down on one knee beside Emily's wheelchair, bringing herself to eye level. Up close, Emily could see that the woman's eyes were kind but fierce, like someone who'd seen hard things but hadn't let them make her cold. "My name is Lieutenant Colonel Jackson," the woman said, "and I can see something happened here. Do you want to tell me about it?" Something about the way she asked made Emily feel safe. Maybe it was the military uniform, which represented authority and protection, or maybe it was just the genuine concern in the woman's eyes. Either way, Emily found herself talking. The words came tumbling out. She told Lieutenant Colonel Jackson everything. About the 3 bikers, about how they'd mocked her disability and her speech, about how they'd spun her wheelchair and taken her sketchbook, about the video they'd recorded. She told her how scared she'd been, how humiliated she'd felt, how nobody had really helped until it was almost over. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson listened to every word without interrupting. Her expression grew more serious with each detail, her jaw muscles working like she was trying to control her anger. When Emily finished, her voice breaking on the last few words, the lieutenant colonel was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and gently placed her hand over Emily's. "What they did to you was wrong," she said firmly. "It was cruel and cowardly, and you didn't deserve any of it. Do you understand me? Not one bit of it was your fault." Emily nodded, even though part of her had been wondering if maybe she had somehow brought it on herself. If maybe she should have moved faster or said something different or just left earlier. "Where are these men now?" Lieutenant Colonel Jackson asked. "They left," Emily said. "Maybe 10 or 15 minutes ago." A woman stood up to them and they finally went. "Did they say where they were going?" Emily thought back. One of them said something about another place down the street. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson nodded slowly like she was making a plan. She stood up and looked down the street, then back at Emily. "I want you to stay right here for a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. Can you do that for me?" "Why?" Emily asked, confused. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to handle this," the lieutenant colonel said simply. "Nobody gets to treat people the way they treated you. Not on my watch." There was something in her voice that made Emily believe her. This wasn't just empty words or someone trying to make her feel better. This woman meant what she said. "But they're probably gone by now," Emily said. "And I just want to forget about it." Lieutenant Colonel Jackson knelt down again, looking Emily straight in the eyes. "Honey, I understand you want to forget. But if we let people like that get away with treating others badly, they'll just do it again to someone else. Maybe someone who doesn't have a service dog to protect them. Maybe someone even more vulnerable than you." Emily hadn't thought about it that way. She'd been so focused on her own pain that she hadn't considered they might do this to other people. "I don't want anyone else to go through what I went through," Emily admitted quietly. "Then let me handle this," Lieutenant Colonel Jackson said. "You've been through enough today. It's time someone stood up for you properly." She stood up again and pulled out her phone, making a quick call. Emily couldn't hear everything she said, but she caught words like harassment, disability discrimination, and "I need backup at this location." When she hung up, she turned back to Emily. "I've called some friends. They'll be here soon. In the meantime, let me see if I can find these guys." "How?" Emily asked. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson smiled, and it wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to set things right. "There aren't that many places motorcycles like that would go around here. And 3 loud bikes tend to be noticed." She started to walk away, then stopped and came back. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emily." "Emily, I'm going to tell you something my grandmother told me when I was young and facing bullies." Lieutenant Colonel Jackson's voice softened. "She said that the world will test you. It'll test your strength, your dignity, your courage. And sometimes the test comes in the form of cruel people who try to make you feel small. But you're not small. You're a human being, with just as much right to respect and dignity as anyone else. Don't you ever forget that." Emily felt more tears coming, but these were different. These weren't tears of humiliation or fear. These were tears of relief, of finally feeling seen and heard and protected. "Thank you," Emily whispered. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson nodded. "I'll be back soon. Keep Max close and don't talk to anyone you don't feel comfortable with." She walked to her SUV, got in, and drove slowly down the street, clearly looking for the motorcycles. Emily watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of hope and disbelief. Had that really just happened? Had this decorated military officer really just promised to track down the guys who'd hurt her? About 5 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled into the cafe parking lot. Emily's heart jumped. She hadn't expected actual police to show up. 2 officers got out, a man and a woman, both looking professional and serious. They walked over to Emily, and the female officer knelt down beside her wheelchair. "Hi there. Are you Emily?" Emily nodded, unsure what to say. "Lieutenant Colonel Jackson called us," the male officer explained. "She told us what happened to you here today. We'd like to get your statement if that's okay with you. Emily's hands started shaking again. The idea of reliving the whole thing, of having to explain every humiliating detail to the police, made her want to disappear. But she remembered what Lieutenant Colonel Jackson had said about stopping them from doing it to someone else. So she told them everything. The officers took notes, asked gentle questions, and treated her with respect and kindness. They asked if she knew the bikers' names or if she could describe them in detail. Emily did her best describing the bearded leader, the shaved head one, and the thin guy with long hair. Did they physically harm you? The female officer asked. Not really, Emily admitted. I mean, one of them spun my wheelchair around and I spilled my coffee. But they didn't hit me or anything. That's still assault, the male officer said firmly. Unwanted physical contact, even with your wheelchair, counts as assault. And combined with the harassment and discrimination based on your disability, this is serious. Emily hadn't realized it could be considered assault. She'd thought that since they hadn't actually hurt her body, it wasn't that bad. But hearing the officer say it was serious made her feel validated somehow. What had happened to her mattered. It wasn't just her being too sensitive. The officers were finishing up their questions when Lieutenant Colonel Jackson's SUV pulled back into the parking lot. Emily's heart started racing. Did she find them? The lieutenant colonel got out and walked over to the officers, who clearly knew her. They exchanged a few words that Emily couldn't quite hear, and then all three of them came over to her. Emily, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson said, and there was satisfaction in her voice. I found them. You did? Emily couldn't believe it. They're at a bar about half a mile down the road, still sitting on their motorcycles out front, acting like they own the place. She turned to the officers. I have their plate numbers and descriptions. They match everything Emily told you. The male officer nodded. We'll head over there right now and have a conversation with them. I'm coming with you, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson said, and it wasn't a request. The female officer smiled slightly. We figured you'd say that, ma'am. They started to leave, but Emily called out, Wait, what's going to happen to them? The officers and Lieutenant Colonel Jackson turned back to her. It was the lieutenant colonel who answered. They're going to face consequences for what they did, she said. They're going to apologize to you, and they're going to understand that they can't treat people this way without answering for it. But what if they get angry? Emily worried. What if they come back and do something worse? Lieutenant Colonel Jackson walked back over to Emily and placed both hands on the armrests of her wheelchair, looking her straight in the eyes. Emily, I promise you they will not bother you again. I'm going to make absolutely certain of that. Do you trust me? Emily looked into the woman's eyes and saw absolute certainty there. This wasn't someone who made promises lightly. This was someone who followed through. Yes, Emily said. I trust you. Good, now is there someone we can call to come sit with you? A friend or family member? I don't want you sitting here alone while we're gone. Emily thought about it. My roommate Katie, she's probably home right now. The female officer pulled out her phone. Give me her number. I'll call her and explain what's happening. Within minutes, Katie was on her way. The officers and Lieutenant Colonel Jackson left to find the bikers, and Emily sat there with Max, feeling strange. The worst thing that had ever happened to her had just occurred. But somehow in the midst of it, she'd been found by someone who refused to let it stand, someone who saw her as worth defending. For the first time since the bikers had shown up, Emily felt like maybe things would be okay. Katie showed up within 15 minutes. Her car screeching into the parking lot faster than it probably should have. She practically jumped out and ran over to Emily, her face full of concern and anger. Oh my God, Em, are you okay? Katie knelt down beside the wheelchair, looking her roommate over like she was checking for injuries. The officer told me what happened. I can't believe those jerks did that to you. Emily felt herself tearing up again just from having her friend there. I'm okay. I mean, I'm not okay, but I'm not hurt. Not physically, anyway. Katie noticed the coffee stain on Emily's jeans and the crumpled sketchbook in her lap. Her face hardened. Where are they? Where are these guys? The police went to find them, Emily explained. And that woman in the military uniform, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson. She's with them. Good, Katie said fiercely. I hope they throw the book at those losers. They sat together for a while, Katie pulling up a chair next to Emily's wheelchair. She got Emily a fresh coffee from inside the cafe and insisted the manager comp it, which he did without argument. He also apologized profusely for not doing more to help, though Emily could tell he felt genuinely bad about it. About 45 minutes passed. Emily kept checking her phone, wondering what was happening. Were the police talking to the bikers right now? Had they found them at that bar like Lieutenant Colonel Jackson said? What would they say? Would they deny everything? Then she saw the police cars coming back down the street. But they weren't alone. Behind them were 3 motorcycles moving slowly, almost reluctantly. And behind those was Lieutenant Colonel Jackson's black SUV. Emily's heart started pounding. They brought them back, she whispered to Katie. Oh, this is going to be good, Katie said, standing up protectively beside Emily's wheelchair. The small convoy pulled into the cafe parking lot. The police cars parked first, then the motorcycles, then the SUV. Emily watched as the 2 officers got out, followed by Lieutenant Colonel Jackson. The 3 bikers climbed off their motorcycles, and Emily could see immediately that something had changed. The cocky, aggressive attitude was gone. The bearded leader wasn't swaggering anymore. The shaved head one kept his eyes on the ground. The thin guy with long hair looked like he wanted to be anywhere else but here. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson walked ahead of the group, leading them toward where Emily sat. The officers flanked the bikers on either side, making it clear this wasn't optional. As they got closer, Emily felt Katie's hand on her shoulder, squeezing gently. I'm right here, Katie whispered. You're not alone. The group stopped about 10 feet away from Emily. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson stepped forward first. Emily, these 3 men have something they need to say to you, she announced, her voice carrying that same authority it had before. Gentlemen, step forward. The 3 bikers moved forward reluctantly. Up close, Emily could see that the bearded one's eyes were red, like he'd been crying or was about to cry. That seemed impossible. This was the same man who'd laughed while spinning her wheelchair around. There was a long, uncomfortable silence. None of them seemed to want to go first. Now, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson said firmly. It wasn't loud, but it was commanding. The bearded leader took a shaky breath and took another step forward. Then he did something Emily never expected. He got down on one knee in front of her wheelchair, putting himself below her eye level. I'm sorry, he said, and his voice cracked. I'm so sorry for what I did to you today. Emily didn't know what to say. She just stared at him. This big, intimidating man kneeling in front of her with tears in his eyes. What I did was cruel and wrong, he continued, his words coming out fast like he'd been rehearsing them. There's no excuse for it, none. I made fun of your disability, I disrespected you, I scared you, and I treated you like you were less than human. And you're not. You're a person who deserves respect and dignity, and I took that away from you. He paused, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Emily noticed his hands were shaking. The truth is, he went on, his voice getting quieter, I've been angry for a long time. My dad left when I was a kid, and before he left he used to call me and my mom weak all the time. He said we were pathetic, and I guess I've been carrying that around, trying to prove I'm not weak by making other people feel small. But that doesn't make me strong. That makes me a bully. That makes me exactly the kind of person I hate. Emily saw real pain in his eyes, real regret. This wasn't someone making a fake apology because the police made him. This was someone who was genuinely confronting what he'd done. I recorded what I did to you, he said, pulling out his phone, and I want you to know I deleted it. Right here, right now. He held up his phone so Emily could see the screen, opened his video gallery, and permanently deleted the video. It's gone. I also want to give you this. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded envelope. There's $200 in here. I know money can't fix what I did, but I want to pay for any damage to your sketchbook, replace your coffee, pay for your clothes to be cleaned, whatever you need. And if there's more damage than that covers, I'll pay for it. All of it. He held the envelope out to Emily with a shaking hand. She took it, not sure what else to do. I understand if you can't forgive me, he said, his voice breaking again. I don't know if I'd forgive me, but I want you to know that I see you. I see that you're a person with feelings and dreams and a life that matters, and I'm going to remember this day for the rest of my life. I'm going to remember what I did to you, and I swear I'm never going to treat another person like that again. He stayed on one knee, waiting. Emily realized he was waiting for her to say something, to respond in some way. Emily started, then stopped. What do you say to something like this? She'd spent the last hour hating this man, fearing him, wanting him to suffer consequences, and now here he was, broken and apologetic and human. Your words really hurt me, Emily finally said, her voice soft but clear. When you made fun of the way I talk, when you treated me like I was less than human, it hurt me deeply. I came to this cafe to feel normal, to just be a college student working on her art, and you made me feel like I don't belong anywhere. The bearded man's face crumpled. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But, Emily continued, surprising herself, I can see that you're genuinely sorry, and I appreciate that you're taking responsibility. That takes courage. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson nodded approvingly. Then she looked at the other two bikers. Your turn. The shaved-head one stepped forward next. He didn't kneel, but he did look Emily in the eyes. I'm sorry, too. I went along with everything. Laughed at the jokes, recorded the video. I was just as bad as he was, maybe worse, because I stood by and let it happen. I'm deleting my video too right now. He pulled out his phone and did the same thing, showing Emily the deletion. I've got some money too, if you need it for anything. Whatever it takes to make this right. The thin guy with long hair was last. He looked the most uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Yeah, I'm sorry. What we did was messed up. Really messed up. I don't know what else to say except I'm sorry and it won't happen again. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson stepped forward then. Emily, I want you to know that these men have been informed of the legal consequences of what they did today. They've been told about disability discrimination laws, about harassment statutes, and about what constitutes assault. They understand that what they did was not just morally wrong, but legally wrong. She turned to face the three bikers. I also want them to understand something else. Something personal. Her voice changed then, becoming less formal and more emotional. My younger brother has Down syndrome. His name is Anthony, and he's 32 years old. He's one of the kindest, most genuine people I've ever known. He loves helping people, loves animals, and has a smile that can light up a room. The three bikers were listening intently now, and so was Emily. But Anthony has been treated the way you treated Emily today, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson continued. He's been mocked, excluded, made to feel like he doesn't belong. And every time it happens, it breaks my heart, because I know what he's capable of. I know his worth as a human being, but some people only see his disability, just like you only saw Emily's wheelchair in her speech. She paused, and Emily could see her jaw working like she was trying to control her emotions. I've spent 20 years in the military, she said. I've served in combat zones. I've led troops in some of the most dangerous places in the world. And you know what I learned? Real strength isn't about intimidating people. It's not about making others feel small so you can feel big. Real strength is standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. It's using whatever power you have to protect, not to harm. She looked at each of the bikers in turn. You three are big guys. You ride motorcycles. You look tough. But today you were weak. You used your size and your numbers to bully someone in a wheelchair. That's not strength. That's cowardice. The bearded man was crying openly now, not even trying to hide it. You're right, he said. You're absolutely right. I was a coward today. Lieutenant Colonel Jackson's expression softened slightly. But you're here now. You're facing what you did. That's a start. The question is, what are you going to do differently from now on? I want to be better, the bearded man said. I want to be the kind of person who stands up for people like Emily, not the kind who hurts them. I want to be someone my mom could be proud of. Then start today, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson said. Start right now. Because the person you are is defined by what you do in moments like this, and every moment going forward is a chance to be better than you were in the past. The female police officer stepped forward then. We've taken statements from everyone involved. Emily, it's up to you whether you want to press charges. These men have admitted to what they did, and there are witnesses and video evidence. If you want to pursue this legally, we'll support you. Emily looked at the three men standing in front of her. They looked genuinely remorseful. The bearded leader especially seemed like a different person from the man who tormented her earlier. But she also thought about what Lieutenant Colonel Jackson had said, about them maybe doing this to someone else if there were no consequences. I don't want to press charges, Emily said slowly, and she saw relief flood the bikers' faces. But I do want something from you. Anything, the bearded man said immediately. Whatever you want. I want you to volunteer, Emily said. I want you to spend time with people with disabilities. Really get to know them as people. See what their lives are like. Learn what they face every day. Because I think if you'd known anyone with a disability before today, if you'd ever seen them as actual human beings, You wouldn't have treated me the way you did." The three bikers looked at each other, then nodded. "We'll do it," the bearded man said. "I promise you we'll do it." Lieutenant Colonel Jackson smiled at Emily. "That's a wise decision, and I'm going to make sure they follow through on it. I volunteer with a disability advocacy group in this area, and these three gentlemen are going to become very familiar with it." Katie squeezed Emily's shoulder proudly. The police officers looked satisfied, and the three bikers looked like they'd been given a second chance they didn't deserve, but were grateful for anyway. The bearded man stood up from his kneeling position. "Thank you," he said to Emily. "Thank you for giving me a chance to be better. I won't waste it." As the group started to disperse, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson stayed behind with Emily and Katie. She pulled out a business card and handed it to Emily. "You call me if you ever need anything," she said. "If those guys bother you again, if you face any other problems, or if you just need someone to talk to who understands. My personal cell number is on there." Emily took the card, looking at it through blurry eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for standing up for me." "That's what we do for each other," Lieutenant Colonel Jackson said simply. "That's what being human means."